we got a pretty hefty assignment fee on that one. I think the fee is right around 1,000.
Welcome to Building Wealth Through Real Estate. If you invest or desire to invest in real estate, then this show is exactly what you need. And here's why. We all know that the number one thing that you should be doing as an investor is networking. Your network equals your net worth. But how can you use this to your advantage? Well, firstly, take notes. Listen to what the guests have to say. If you're a new investor, you can learn from the mistakes that they've made, the experiences that they've gone through, and learn how they think. If you're an experienced investor, you could see strategies that they may be implementing that you haven't thought of using yourself. Now, secondly, you may have questions, and if you do, great. Put them in the comment section down below, and this way we can be sure to get those questions answered for you. And thirdly, there's a ton of information out there, but I found that most of it is relevant to the US, and it's hard to try and take out and extract and see what's relevant to your area. So all of the guests that I'll be interviewing are Canadian investors. So if you invest in Canada, if you're interested in investing in Canada, then this show is exactly what you need. Joining us today is Mr. Matt Leger. Matt, could you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, how you got started in real estate, and your journey to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Matthew Leger. I'm a father, 3 boys, 1 little girl. I have a full-time job in the oil sands up in Fort McMurray. And I recently got started in wholesaling February of last year. I was kind of stuck in my journey. I was no longer able to progress. I was kind of restricted with capital and kind of tired of where I was. So I kind of looked at different opportunities. So I was introduced to wholesaling and kind of grew my business to where it is today. So it's been quite exciting since.
And outside of wholesaling, do you have any other strategy that you're currently pursuing? And what are your goals for the year ahead?
Yeah, so I have done fix and flips in the past. We do have a fix and flip currently that we're going to be taking possession of next week. My goals for this year is just to scale my wholesaling business. I've started to tap into the Edmonton market, so our goals for the end of the year is kind of just to scale into the Edmonton market a bit more, and also continue and scale my New Brunswick wholesaling business as well.
Awesome. So currently it's New Brunswick, it's Calgary, and now it's Edmonton, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. So at least anyone listening, if they are investing in those areas, Matt's info will be in the description down below. Now, Matt, getting started in wholesaling, what's been the most challenging obstacle or skill set that you've had to develop?
For me, it would have been knowing how to properly dissect and analyze deals. So how to analyze the deal so you can present it to investors in the best way possible, and obviously inquiring buyers for those deals as well is those were the biggest obstacles that I had to overcome earlier in my career.
There's the buying side, and then there's the acquiring side and the analyzing that comes with that. And I think a lot of people get stuck with that. I think with the buying side, people know it's pretty straightforward. Go network and put yourself out there, and you can build up your list. But when it comes to the analyzing side, what were some things that you did to sort of improve that skill set?
Just partnering up with different realtors, getting to know my market as best as I could. Just doing research, studying the ins and outs of fix and flips, learning what other investors were looking for, if it was down to BRRRRs or rentals or fix and flips. Those things really helped, and obviously just studying your comparables and knowing your buy box for different communities of the cities that you're targeting.
Yeah, absolutely. That's solid advice, man. And going to the rehab portion, I know some people get stuck on this. What did you do? Were you reaching out to local contractors, getting estimates on what different rehabs would cost so that you could sort of run your numbers effectively, knowing that they're somewhat spot on?
Yeah, so for us, we typically target specifically bungalows here in Calgary. So for the most part, bungalows they come in usually within 1,100 to 1,300 square feet. So once you're able to determine, that renovation budget, it's basically just cookie cutter approach from there. You just copy and paste from property to property. You might factor in some big ticket items like windows, doors, roof, if needed. But yeah, you could really quickly analyze your property, your deal, just by having a quick glance at it. So it makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, that's the thing, is getting those initial numbers and confidence in those numbers, and then going forward, you realize that it's a lot less complicated than you thought when you started out, right? I think it's a little daunting for people at first, trying to wrap their heads around all the numbers and analyzing it, and knowing if it's a good enough deal, and at what number it actually makes sense for it to be a good enough deal to add your assignment fee and present it to an investor, knowing that they're going to want to jump on the opportunity, right? Um, what advice do you have for people looking to get started in wholesaling?
Uh, that's a good question. The best advice that I would have for anybody that would want to get started in wholesaling, just inquire the knowledge needed uh, at the start, and just go out there and get your first deal. And obviously, it's going to be a little intimidating, but you'll learn the process as things go. So don't necessarily worry too much about the paperwork side of things, how to get it under contract. You could always reach out to your lawyer or your team members, like your realtor and all that stuff, for assistance. And most of the time, there's lots of local wholesalers that you can reach out to kind of, you know, hold your hand to get it to the closing process for those first couple deals. So
Yeah, absolutely. I love that advice. I love that advice. It's just getting out. The first deal is the hardest deal, right? Um, like Barry Maguire says, the first damn deal, right? So I think getting that one under your belt just gives you that confidence to know that there are going to be those unknowns, but you can tackle them along the way, and it just you build your skill set going forward. So yeah, I love that advice. You sort of just get started, get that first deal. It's a little less daunting, and yeah, it will sort of just pick up momentum from there. Now, I've often heard that wholesaling is a young person's game, which often deters, older folks who may already have kids and responsibilities. You currently have a big family. You work a job and wholesaling successfully on the side. So not only in one city, but multiple cities. So what's your perspective on this, and what advice do you have for others aspiring to achieve what you have?
uh, so for me, earlier in my career, I knew right away that I had to put the proper systems in place in order for me to be successful as a wholesaler. Because, like you said, I have a large family at home. I have a full time job, so I needed to put acquisition managers. I needed to have people, boots on the ground, uh, people that were able to go and view these properties for me, take pictures when I needed, and obviously I needed cash buyers on hand to dispose of these properties fairly quickly. So at first, it was time consuming. Obviously, it is a single man's business, but if you have the proper systems in place and look at it like a business, and yeah, it's easily manageable from that point of view. So
I love that. I love the fact that you said like a business, because that's essentially what it is. And uh, if people haven't read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, I'm not sure if you've read that one, but it's brilliant for that. It sort of it breaks down what separates successful businesses and unsuccessful businesses, and it's how they started, and the fact that you're able to realize it's a business and break down the different responsibilities within the business and put systems in place, and if needed from the beginning, put people in place. And I know from our prior conversations that you were pretty efficient at that. You haven't been doing this for like years and years, but in the short time that you've done this, you've built up a tremendous amount of momentum. And you're absolutely right. You can either just forget about all of that and just go for it, which, I mean, taking action, I think, is crucial. But you could think of it as, hey, I'm going to run in that direction, or I'm quickly going to put together a bicycle or a car or vehicle that will get me there a whole lot faster. So I may take off a little slower, but I'm going to get there a whole lot quicker. You know what I mean? And that's essentially what putting a business in place is so that you can leverage the systems, you can leverage other people's time to be able to assist you when you're not able to, when you have to, run a household, spend quality time with your family, do your 9 to 5, all of that. So I love that advice, and I love the fact that you've done it. And you're not a single man, you know what I mean? You have a family, you have all these responsibilities, so it's not an excuse. It can be done, right? Um,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
yeah. Now, having so much on the go, you've obviously had to systematize the wholesaling business and be as efficient with your time as possible. What are some things that you've implemented to stay on top of getting everything done?
Just having the proper schedules in place, the proper systems. I have, like your acquisition managers, your VAs that kind of take care of your calls and lead managing, and then so all those are very important. Obviously, being very good in marketing as well, just to make sure that you have constant lead flow from all directions, to make sure that your business is successful is quite important as well. So all those aspects kind of funnel into each other and make continue to make the wheel turn. So
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't mind touching on how, just briefly, how you scaled up with those systems and putting those people in place. Like, who was the first person that you brought onto your team? What position did they hold, and how did you determine where to sort of leverage that time going forward? Like when to hire the VA, when to push more to marketing, that sort of thing.
yeah, so at the very beginning, when I first initially started wholesaling, it was cross country. So I was wholesaling back in New Brunswick while I was at work uh, in camp. So I reached out to my sister. She lives in New Brunswick. So initially, she would go and visit properties over Zoom. She would take pictures, return all the information back to me, and then later on, through the journey, I kind of taught her more about negotiation. So then she kind of started negotiating and locking up deals on her own, where then I would just take over the deal and dispose the property over to my cash buyers. So that's kind of the relationship we had initially. Then when I kind of started tapping into the Calgary market, I immediately inquired an acquisition manager, kind of the same point of view of the relationship me and my sister have. And that's kind of how it's been going here so far. Um, right away, off the first couple deals that I did early on in the career, I automatically invested all of those assignment fees directly into marketing, just so I could maximize the amount of leads coming in and just to continue to have that lead flow come in. So, we could generate and build and scale our business.
Okay. And then I take it you got to the point where you needed some help on like the admin side of things, and you're like, okay, it's time to get a VA in place, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think the fact that you started off with the long distance, is it forces you to put systems in place, right? It forces you to build that from the beginning, because you're not there, you're not able to be there in person, right? And I think the same holds true for long distance investing. You have to get the property management in place, you have to get the power team, you have to get the whole system in place so that it can work without you, because that's essentially what a business is it should be able to operate on some degree without you, or if you were to put someone in your place, that they could the business could still run. Now, obviously, you're an active member of your business, so your business still needs you, but you're not the whole business. The business isn't you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You actually have systems and people in place that keep the business going. And the fact that when you branched out into Calgary, you immediately got the acquisitions manager. I think it's really good as well to sort of realize where you want to focus your attention and where your skill sets lie. Not saying that you don't have that skill set, but you don't have the ability to be boots on the ground all the time in Calgary, right? So it's knowing that and leveraging someone else's ability to do that. So I really love touching on that factor, because it's very easy to get lost in wearing all the hats and not scaling and just keeping busy, right? So yeah, thank you for breaking that down. Now, when it comes to like the due diligence, what due diligence should investors take when it comes to off-market deals that they may not have to take with on-market ones?
So obviously, off-market deals, when it comes to investors, they need to pull the trigger on them a lot quicker than they would with on-market deals. So obviously, having your contractors in place, your inspectors, your financing set up in place, being able to get those contractors and inspectors in the property at a short period, short time is pretty crucial when it comes to picking up deals from wholesalers. So you want to be due diligent. You want to do all your research and your inspections in a short period of time. So
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also think one mental shift is when you're working with on-market deals, the goal is also do some due diligence, but if you can get it under contract, if you can put that offer in, you then have that period to do your due diligence, which holds true for off market. But for off market, you ideally want to do most of your due diligence before you go in ahead, right? Because the last thing you want to do is lock up the deal with or try and get the deal under contract or whatever, and then pull out. You don't want to be wasting the wholesaler's time either, because that just pushes you right down the list of importance when the next deal pops up, right? Whereas with on-market deals, it's like, yeah, let's put in an offer. If you go through and you don't like it, we haven't removed conditions, we could pull out of it essentially. I think you need to be a little quicker and a little more confident in your due diligence process when you're dealing with off-market deals, right?
yeah, exactly.
And then flipping it over to the wholesaling side of things, what due diligence do you have to do on your end to protect yourself?
So there's different ways that you can kind of proceed with assigning your deals. For us, when we assign them, we would amend the original purchase and sale contract with the end buyer, so that kind of removes all liability on us, and then the end buyer is fully liable to fulfill his needs and close on the property. Obviously, we check and make sure that the buyer is, has all his financing in place. We do have partners like Calvert that, pre-qualify our buyers in advance, so we know they have the cash readily available to close on these properties. So it's just a matter of doing a quick walkthrough inspection, and away they go. So most of the time they go unconditional, and they're able to close relatively quickly. So it makes the process quite seamless.
Perfect. Yeah, I love that. That's a great tip for people who are looking to get into wholesaling, just to make sure that they protect themselves with regards to that. And with regards to the assignment fee, I take it that's being paid right up front, right?
So some of them get paid up front. If they get financed through private money lenders or whatnot, they'll get paid at closing. So the fees will just be held in trust with our lawyer and then released on closing day.
Perfect. Perfect. So you know it's held in trust. You don't really have to worry about not getting your assignment fee at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how can investors go about building that strong relationship with the wholesaler? And what can an investor do to ensure that they get taken seriously by wholesalers and stay on the top tier of their priority list?
Uh, it comes to kind of just relationship. We have a lot of investors in our investor network that we've built relationships with. A lot of them, they're not they don't come around and waste our time, so we know exactly what they want. So we usually will go out there and look for specific properties for these specific investors, and when we find them, they pull the trigger on them right away. So those investors are at the top of our priority list. So they'll get first pick at the deals that we have under contract, and yeah, for new investors looking to get on a wholesalers buyers list is just making sure that you have all your dots dotted and your T's crossed, and having your financing in place, and all those good things, and you'll work your way up there as well. So
Yeah, that's solid advice because um, the last thing you want to do is be wasting their time, right? But wasting your wholesaler's time because eventually they're not going to take you seriously. You're going to drop down on that list. So I think like one thing that newer investors could be doing as well is just getting very clear on their criteria and not just trying to jump on every opportunity. Because then they won't be as confident in the numbers, as confident in knowing that it works for them. If they're very clear on, and that's what I found is dealing with seasoned investors is they're super clear on their criteria. They know exactly what they want and what they don't want. And if anything comes across their table that they don't want, they're not even going to waste the wholesaler's time. But as soon as something comes across their plate that is exactly what they want, the due diligence process is easy. The numbers are easy. They've ran through this enough times. They know by looking at it if it will work or if it won't work, and it makes the whole process a whole lot seamless. And the wholesaler knows you're not wasting their time, so you stay on top of their priority list. So that's one thing, is getting clear on that criteria. And if it seems like it's going to work for you, then have everything aligned, like you say, and pull through. I think, like you said perfectly, it's a relationship that you build in. It's a relationships game, like everything else in real estate investing, and you want to nourish that relationship so that they take you seriously. So could we run through a wholesale deal that sort of stands out to you?
there's a deal that I just closed today. Uh, it was a deal that I got under contract back in November of last year. It was a 12 unit multifamily. We kind of constructed a deal with the seller where the seller was going to hold a $600,000 VTB for 3 years. And then we recently assigned that deal to a local buyer, which closed today. So we got a pretty hefty assignment fee on that one. I think the fee is right around 50,000.
Nice. So where's this property located, if you don't mind me asking? Is it in Calgary?
No, this one here was in Moncton, New Brunswick.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So essentially, with regards to if it's a VTB, how much out of pocket was the investor coming in with?
So the whole purchase price was 1.2 million. The seller was holding 600,000 for 3 years. So the buyer had to come up with the rest.
Okay. And then of
Yeah.
course the assignment fee included in that, right?
Yeah.
That's a nice win. That's a big win, man.
Yeah. That was pretty good.
Yeah. So I didn't know this about you. You're doing multifamily as well. as your residential?
Yeah, this was my first multifamily that I signed. It was definitely a lot different than single families. A lot more due diligence needs to
Yeah.
be done. The whole process was pretty lengthy. So I don't recommend targeting multifamily for your first deals, but it is it is doable for sure. So
Yeah.
if you have the buyers looking for multifamily and you find exactly what they're looking for and they're ready to pull the trigger, then you can basically assign any type of property.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt, man. And how did you find this lead?
This actually happened to come through a flyer that we sent out. So the landlord, his building was fully tenanted, and he didn't want to, spook his tenants by listing the property on the market. So he kind of just reached out and said, "Hey, you're interested in purchasing my property?" And then I kind of explained to him the process and what we could do to help him out, and he was, fully on board. We were pretty transparent with him, and he agreed to work with us. And yeah, we got a buyer in place and closed on it just today. So
Absolutely. And that's what people don't understand is the wholesaling opportunities are there. And there's multiple reasons why people would want to wholesale versus listing it, right? Um,
yeah,
each has their benefits. Listing it, you get more eyeballs, probably get as much for your property as you possibly can. But there are definitely benefits to selling it off market, and wholesaling it. And it doesn't just have to be that the property itself is distressed. There are other reasons. They may not want to have multiple showings. They may not want to have, like in this case, the tenants be aware that the property is for sale and spook them. So um, I've had multiple occasions. Like I've even had one recently where the lady she had a sickly dad, and she didn't want people in and out of her house. So in this case, she just wanted it sort of sold as quickly as possible, as little people in and out of the house as possible. Just make that process seamless. And it's not necessarily that they can't afford to hold the property, although those you do get those, but there's multiple reasons why they'd want to sell it off market. So they definitely there's a lot of wholesalers out there, but there's no shortage of people who could use your help. So yeah, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Um, and did you do a walkthrough with this one? And what key factors were you looking at, especially considering that it's multifamily, before deciding if it's worth your time to look at the property? And if not this one, just in general, what are those key factors that you're looking for um, to see if you could even help the person?
So for me, this one here was my first multifamily. So I reached out to local real estate agents in the area, kind of got their point of view after going back and forth with the seller um, on what my buyer was interested in. I was then able to kind of construct the deal around their both of their best interest. Uh, then we kind of did the walkthrough of the property just to make sure that it was in line with what the seller had described. And yeah, the building turned out to be turnkey, so it was pretty seamless. Just a quick transfer, and everybody stayed in place. And yeah, it was a win-win for everyone. So
How do you, if not in this case, how do you go about actually approaching the seller with regards to the whole wholesaling process? Because a lot of them aren't really aware of how it works and what it entails. How do you present this to them?
So I just let them know that my intentions are to purchase the property with my uh, list of investors or with other creative real estate strategies. So I will either close on it myself or one of my cash buyer partners will. So I'm usually pretty transparent with them on that side. Usually they're pretty comfortable with it, and that way we can kind of move forward. And there's no, you know, nothing pops up down the road when it comes to closing on these properties.
And how did the negotiation process go? Now, I know in this case you had a particular buyer and seller in mind, so you sort of just facilitating the transaction. But in general, how does that negotiation process go? And do you have any negotiation tips for people out there?
So for me, for this instance, I actually ended up flying back to New Brunswick on vacation, so I was able to negotiate with the seller in person. So there's different strategies that we apply when it comes to negotiating with sellers that you generally wouldn't have when you're negotiating deals on market. So we can offer to take possession of the property, tenants in place. We can take possession of the property with all the seller's remaining belongings left behind. We can kind of cover their closing costs. We can offer moving assistance, all those things. So I apply all those strategies when it comes to negotiating with sellers, just depending on what solutions they're kind of looking for, right? Uh, so yeah, that's kind of how we kind of do it.
No, that makes sense because you're solving a pain point. So it's highlighting the different pain points that you can solve. And then, of course, telling them at what price it would make the deal make sense for you to take it on, right? And I think
Yeah,
most people understand that it's a service that you're providing, so essentially they're paying for that service. Maybe not directly by giving you money, but by giving you the property at a discount. They're essentially paying for those services, right? So, um,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I think when it comes to wholesaling, it's just getting that that mindset shift. Knowing that
Mhm.
you're actually out here helping people. Um, you're not trying to steal their property for a ridiculous amount just to get as much as possible, but in fact, you're trying to help them out of a situation. And if you can focus on that, you can also articulate it in a way that they can understand that you're just here to help them. You're here to provide solutions. And by all means, they always have the option to go ahead and sell their property in a traditional sense. But in certain cases, they don't want that. So you're offering them a service, and it comes at a cost, right? Um,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. So with regards to the buying side, how did you find the buyer for this one? Were they already in your list and they just said, "Hey, look, I'm interested in a multifamily apartment," and you just started looking for those?
Yeah, so I knew this individual for quite some time. So he was on our buyers list. We knew exactly what he was looking for. So as soon as we found that this specific property, we reached out and he was interested right away. So it was quite seamless. I'm not saying that every deal is the same, but for this one here, it went pretty smooth. So
So, like, what was the overall experience with the entire process? And now I know you said this one hasn't had any challenges, and you have those that go super smooth, and then you of course have those that have multiple challenges going through. Um, are there any particular uh, situations where there are challenges that just stand out? Challenges that you've had along the way, and if so, if any of them stand out most to you, how were you able to overcome them? You could sort of just highlight one that stands out the most, or a few that have been like reoccurring. Although I take it that once a challenge comes up in future going forward, you sort of have a sort of procedure or process on how you would deal with it. But what's the biggest challenge that really stands out the most to you with regards to one of your wholesale deals?
uh so for me it would be finding like serious buyers. So at the beginning of my career, I would find buyers that kind of were interested but not were not fully interested in the deals. So a couple of those deals end up falling through the cracks because they were not able to, you know, get financing, or their inspections didn't fall through, or whatnot. So later on in my career, like today, I don't amend the contracts anymore to my end buyers. So I remain fully responsible for the deal. So for any reason, if the end buyer does not fulfill his obligations to close on these properties, I can go back to the seller and renegotiate the deal. Maybe I will offer the seller, my deposit or my assignment fee just to help them out, and maybe renegotiate or buy myself some more time just to get the second buyer in place and get this deal closed as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the obstacles that I did come across that I've learned to overcome with time. So
Being an investor focused realtor myself, I work with a few wholesalers, and that's sort of the common thing that I hear is the issues that they have is serious buyers, and having buyers lock up deals, and then unfortunately, they never really follow through on it, and now essentially it's sort of lost. But I like the fact that you go back to the sellers and offer them some sort of compensation, some sort of incentive, just to help them see it through. And that just shows to uh, your ability, not only, or your intentions rather, not only to make money on as a business, but also to see this as a way of helping people. And even if it has to cut into some of the profits, the goal is still to help people at the end of the day. So I respect that, man. I honestly, I do. What do you find are the most common things that serious investors want to know before they pull the trigger? Here's a quick tip for you listeners out there. As a real estate investor, there's two things that you can focus on that will bring everything else together. The first thing is networking. Go out there and network with other like-minded investors. Look in your area, see what networking events there are, and go and join them. If you're within the Edmonton area, by all means, find my contact info below. I'll hook you up with local events, and you can make sure that you go and attend as many as possible. Grow your network, grow your net worth. The second thing I'd say is your power team. You'll come to leverage them quite often. You rely on them to make investing easier for you. They have the expertise that you don't need to have. So I'd make sure that I focus on building a strong power team. If you are in the Edmonton region, you're looking for an investor-focused realtor, by all means, hit me up. I am licensed. I do have an investor list as well that I just send deals out to investors on my list. So if you are interested in being added to that as well, you can contact me below. I'll make sure to add you. Let's get back to it.
usually they want to make sure that the numbers make sense. So it's very important for us to run accurate numbers. Usually they'll want to know what the renovation budgets are, and what the ARV and what their estimated profit is going to be once they sell the property. So for us, it's very important that we run all those numbers very accurately. And for the most part, we all our deals get sent off to our private money lenders. So some of these deals are already pre-qualified with lenders, so it's very easy for buyers to just pick them up and pull the trigger on them.
That's awesome. So you essentially you're not only offering buyers a property, you're also offering them an option to private lending.
Yeah. So for example, like Calvert Home Mortgages fund uh, a lot of our deals. So Calvert will analyze these deals and make sure that they're profitable for their investors. So it's makes it pretty seamless for cash buyers to just pick them up and get financing for them.
Is this on every single deal that you're picking up, especially locally in Calgary, that you sort of having it run through Calvert for them to make sure the deal works? Or is it particular deals that you send in their way?
Yeah, just particular deals. If they're reoccurring customers, typically they'll just funnel through Calvert. But yeah.
That's really great. It's just offering that next level service to your buyers. Now, going back to the problem that you faced most often, what advice do you have for wholesalers when it comes to making sure that they select a buyer who's not going to back out last minute? Is there anything that they can sort of be proactive on in filtering out their buyers, other than waiting to see if a buyer flakes and knowing for next time? Because I mean, like, sometimes an investor is serious about pulling the trigger, but maybe the joint venture partners aren't able to pull through, or capital gets tied up longer than expected. Now, of course, like you do have the option for private lending, but for those cases, how do wholesalers do you have any tips for them to navigate that, to try and at least mitigate the chance of that happening?
Yeah, so for me, I usually ask for a pretty large non-refundable deposit. So obviously, if a buyer is serious and is willing to put that money in trust with my lawyer, most of the time they'll do whatever it takes to fulfill and close on that property, just so they don't lose on that deposit. And obviously, you want to do your due diligence as well as a wholesaler. Just ask around in the community, make sure that the buyer is actually serious, because the last thing you want to do is leave a seller in a uncomfortable situation that they shouldn't be, right? So you also have that responsibility to the seller and to close on the property on their desired time. So
Yeah, exactly. Because most of the time, that's one of the most important factors for them, right? Is they need to have it sold quickly. They need it done within a specific time frame, and that's why they choose off market as well. One thing that I want to find out is, with investing, we know that building your power team is crucial, right? And when it comes to wholesaling, would you just quickly outline what your power team looks like as a wholesaler, and if it even differs to an investor?
yeah, so my wife is part of my team as well. So she's a realtor. So any deals that come across that doesn't necessarily fit our buying criteria, I can assist sellers by referring them to her. And then there's myself. I have lead manager that kind of just filters through the leads, pre-qualifies them, lets us know if they fit within our buying box. And then I have a acquisition manager where he'll go and visit properties, make that initial communication with them, maybe view it, take some pictures. He'll do like the negotiation with the seller, and then I kind of just package the deals together, send them out to our buyers, and then I'll carry the deal to closing, and then just follow up with sellers, make sure the whole process is going pretty smooth, and it's pretty much how it goes.
Perfect. And then, of course, just Calvert on the side for financing for your buyers as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Yeah, I like that. So essentially, you are the face for dealing with the investors, building that list, that side of things. You working on the investor side, and then, of course, facilitating the transaction to the finish line.
Absolutely.
That's sort of your role. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. And I love the fact that you sort of teamed up with your wife, because that's one thing, when I started out with the wholesaling side, is I quickly noticed that, a lot of the deals that come in, when you actually funnel them through, a lot of them don't fit within the range of being able to wholesale.
Absolutely.
But they want to sell their property.
Yeah.
And instead of letting those deals just, go to waste, I was at the time, I was referring them to a realtor, for that referral discount, or for that referral fee rather. But you'll quickly come to realize that, and you do a lot of the marketing, right? You focus heavily on marketing, so it's wise not to let that portion of leads just go to waste, because you can service them on multiple levels. So if your wife is licensed, she can service them if they want to put their property on the market, and if it just doesn't make sense for an investor. And then, of course, everything that fits within wholesaling, you can deal with that yourself. So I think that's a smart play for any wholesaler, is to make use of those non-qualifying leads so that they don't go to waste.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I love the fact that you highlighted the team. It just helps people wanting to get into wholesaling understand the full picture and know that they can't really do everything themselves, at least for the long term, right? They need to have a picture going forward on how they're going to scale and how they're going to leverage out these different positions. But when you're not investing, when you're not wholesaling, when you're not at work, how are you spending your time?
Yeah, obviously with my kids, I love doing outdoor activities, taking my kids camping, fishing, summertime stuff. So on my free time, it's my kids have my full attention. But
so Matt, I've recently implemented a new segment into the show, right? And it's called Time Capsule. So like, let's imagine that you've stumbled across a time machine that allows you to travel back and forth in time. You can't change anything, but you can give and receive advice from your older and younger self. Now, first, let's go back to when you were 18 years old. What advice would you give your younger self with the knowledge that you now
have? If I had to go back in time and give myself some advice, I would definitely tell myself to get a mentor and start investing in real estate a lot sooner. Right. And, just take that leap. You're more than likely going to fall and fail a couple times, but at least you'll learn a lot sooner in life and you'll be able to get where you want to go a lot quicker.
Absolutely. Solid advice. And getting a mentor, much better than just getting an education, because a mentor gives you the education, they give you the hindsight, and they keep you accountable. They keep you on track and call you out on any BS excuses or mental limitations that you have, right? That you're telling yourself as why you can't do things. So I think it's crucial getting a mentor in any sense, someone that's sort of where you are or knows about where you're going, that can hold you accountable, educate you, give you advice. I think that's solid advice. And get started early. I think most people would wish that, especially in the investing industry, is the sooner you start, the better, right? Just jump in. Yeah. You're going to fail forward, get it out the way. And, yeah. So now let's jump ahead to your 80th birthday. What advice do you think your future self would give you at your current age?
Just keep at it. Just keep putting in the work. Don't be scared to fail. Failure is only knowledge, and just keep working at it. Avoid giving yourself excuses, and just try to overcome any obstacles that you that you come across. Right. So.
Yeah. I love it, Matt. Now, lastly, where can listeners find out more about you? Maybe we have investors listening to this. Of course we do. And they're like, hey, I want to get on Matt's list. Or we have wholesalers and they want to follow you and see what you're doing because they're just so inspired. People of any kind, like whatever their interest is, where can they reach out to you? I'm sure you probably have a link for investors to get onto your buyers list. I'll be sure to leave that in the description. Anywhere else where people can reach you, can follow along on your journey?
Yeah, they can reach out directly to me on Facebook or Instagram at Matt Legier, or they can look us up on the web, legierhomepropertydeals.ca, and just directly sign up to our buyers list.
Sounds good. And yeah, like I said, I'll make sure to leave all of Matt's info in the description below, so be sure to check him out. Matt, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to bring us this value. You have work on the go. You have so much on the go. You have your family there. So taking the time out, I honestly really appreciate it. I know the audience got value from this one. Thank you for taking the time out.
No, it was my pleasure, Elray. It's always a pleasure to hop on here and give you guys some good content. So thanks again.
Thank you for tuning in to Building Wealth Through Real Estate. If you're interested in learning how you can build and scale your multifamily portfolio, then you're definitely going to love my interview with Shane Unruh. This is your host, Elray Noble, signing off.